back then, I was really bad at talking. I had a really bad, not terrible, but like a small stutter. Not terrible that it would need like speech therapy, but it just kind of, talking generally is hard. I can barely talk. No, you know what got me good at talking? My mom, fed up with this, decided to put me into a public speaking boot camp for 1 week at my school. And so my teacher, I recognize the teacher, and it's like the teacher that everyone absolutely hates in the school. There's like this is the English teacher. So this English teacher was dreaded because once you got into like senior year, you had to take a public speaking class with her. So my mom put me through boot camp, training boot camp for public speaking. And well, also, it was also speech debate, forensic speech and debate, and public speaking. And to get me ready before we had to do this big test where we had to do public speaking. So the test was you had to stand up to the class and you had to do 3 minutes of public speaking about some kind of debate topic. You could hold up flashcards. You were allowed to have flashcards, so you didn't have to memorize it. I was like, thank goodness we don't have to memorize the whole entire 3-minute speech. But you had to look at the camera. You had to look at her. You could not. You had to look at. You had to like look to the whole class throughout the speech. Like, oh, hey everyone. Like, have you ever seen someone at a news conference? You know how they. You couldn't stutter. If you said ooh, ah, kind of any of that kind of filler word, she would take off a point for you if you ever did. Like, hey everyone, my name is, she would take off a point for every time you went, If you went over time, if you went past 3 minutes, she would take off a point too. So if you ended up going overtime or under time, you would get points off. So you had to be within 10 seconds of the 3-minute threshold. And she would not tell you how long 3 minutes is. There is no visible timer. She would only tell you she would only tell you when you only have 1 minute left. That's all she would do. She wouldn't tell you anything else. So she would say, timer start. No, everyone in my school absolutely dreaded her. In fact, someone dreaded her so much they had to go out. They got like not a heart attack, but they got a panic attack and they had to leave the room. And I'm like, She would also judge you by the cadence of your speech. So you had to be able to talk into flowing sentences and be able to not take any pauses for breath. So you should be able to, and you need to enunciate your word. You can't mumble, no mumbling. And make sure that the volume, if you're too quiet, she would take points off too. So if you're too quiet, you would get points off. So you had to make sure you could properly enunciate and no pausing. You couldn't pause again. So you had to make sure you take breaths in between so you couldn't say everything in one continuous sentence. So you guys are always like, how are you able to talk so much without taking breaths or anything? It's just like the same way that people do music. You know how they do like any wind instrument or flute. You just take breaths while you're talking, or you in between like small pauses, but not you don't completely pause to take a breath. Oh yeah, I have tiny lungs. I would have been cooked with no talking breath. I mean, she's not like when she says no breathing in between, it's not like, oh yeah, we're just gonna like can't breathe at all. Like it's like don't do this and can't. And so like, oh, it just kind of like, it was kind of harsh. It's very harsh. But she's like, this is public speaking. That sounds hellish. I told you, she was the most hated teacher in the whole school, and this is why. I mean, I think I got past it with a 95 out of 100. I was like, oh. Yeah, she said, you mumbled a bit, and then you were too quiet in some parts. Yeah, and I said I said at least 3 times in that sentence. I said more than 3 I think she did give us a little buffer. She said, if the first 3 are free, but if you the 4th time, it's not free. 95 is nice. That was the best I could do. I was like, yeah, you could retake. I'm like, no, I can't. I'm not retaking any of this.